That's right. With your hosts, Andrew Romanella.
The first problem is with the owner of the Carolina Panthers, okay? You're an idiot. Seriously, you're an idiot. I don't think I'm good enough in this spot based on my own personal mental health, so I can't continue.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of The Rome Show in the AM on 12 OZ Sports. I am the host, Andrew Romanella. We take you all the way through 7:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter live. You can catch the show in so many places, and if for some reason you missed the show, you can catch the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search The Rome Show Podcast, and remember that is sponsored by WideWorldShop.com, where you can get all of your good, I hope you noticed what I did in the entrance there, all of your Be Electric stuff, and so much more, all right? So head to WideWorldShop.com, the official sponsor of The Rome Show Podcast. Before we dive into all the sports that we have on docket for the people today, we remind you 12OZ Sports has the Snowfest giveaway going on right now, okay? There are 3 different ways you can enter the Snowfest contest, all right? And we've talked about this every day this week. I'm hearing some rumors from up top that we got some entries, which is positive. And just a reminder that will be drawn on the Super Bowl. So head to tickets.12ozsports.com, and you can purchase some tickets. Use the promo code ROME, that's Rome, just like the show, and you'll get a discount off, plus you'll be entered into the contest. Second option, mybookie.net. That's right, mybookie.net. Promo code 12OZ Sports, all right? Once you place your first bet, we want you to send us an email of that wager, all right? You can cross out all of the important information, right? We're not trying to steal any of it. We're just trying to enter you into the Snowfest contest, all right? So that's option number 3. You go to 12ozsports.com and purchase some gear. Pretty simple. Or you head to wideworldshop.com and purchase some gear. And then you can go ahead and you can tag us in social media. The social medias for you are 12OZ Sports, The Rome Show 1, or Coach Romo 24. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, the whole 9. We got a good show for the people today, all right? And I want to start by going straight off the Rome. So I know that it's not necessarily the time period to be talking baseball, and I think that's crazy because we are only 2 weeks away from the start of pitchers and catchers and the start of spring training. But nonetheless, when you go to ESPN.com or another site right now and you look to slide through the options of what sport you want to choose, unfortunately, baseball is no longer a primary option at that drop-down menu. And I think what's gone on is we've gotten, obviously, every football season and all year, football stays the main priority. But I think what's gone on now is obviously NBA's in season, the NHL's in season, but women's and men's March Madness college basketball is absolutely gigantic. Now, personally, I don't think it's that much fun anymore. I mean, I think I'll still watch it, you know. I'm still interested. I'll still take a few bananas out of the fridge and throw them down while basketball games are going on of the college variety. All of that reigns true. But I do not believe that college basketball is at the level it used to be because of the one and dones, because of the inability for a player to stay for 3 or 4 years. You know, we talked about Brittany Griner the other day, and the big thing about Brittany Griner was you did not realize probably in college how freaking dominant she was until you look back at the stats. And I think the same, you know, that doesn't happen anymore. You know, Caitlin Clark, you know, in the WNBA, in women's college basketball, it might happen a little bit more. But for the most part, in men's college basketball, you don't get that anymore. Michael Jordan staying for multiple years at a school would never happen in the history of time, even if it was 2 or 3 years. No, it doesn't even have to be the 4 anymore. It doesn't even have to be the 3 anymore. It's like, will they stay beyond 1 or not? And that's a major question. And I think it has changed the interest for a lot of people in college basketball. Like last night, 2 teams, number 3 team and the number 5 team in the nation, got upset. However, there was probably not a lot of people watching it, outside of the fans in North Carolina or Florida or whatever. All right. So I do believe that college basketball is also on a downtrending turn because of the one and done. And I also think that some of that NIL stuff, some of the one and done type stuff, it can't really exist in football because they have the 3-year rule. But I think that's part of the reason why guys like Mike Krzyzewski, Nick Saban, older coaches in college sports over the last 5 or 6 years have decided to hang them up, because it's a very hard league right now to be coaching in at any college, at any level, because of the transfer portal, because the NIL stuff and all the and et cetera. All right. And we'll dive into that in a little bit when we get into Tennessee. But you might be surprised, but college basketball is not my straight off the Rome. Seeing that merely made me start to think about, wow, it's wild. When I was growing up and I was going to ESPN.com or whatever, it would be football, basketball, baseball, and hockey. And I would argue it was probably football, then baseball, then basketball, then hockey. Now I would say that that's not even the case. The fact that I'm going to jump on a website and scroll through 6 different primary sports and not see Major League Baseball as a drop-down tab 2 weeks before its season started is a real indictment on where the game is at and the excitement level. Like, you're never losing the NFL column for 12 months out of the year. You're never losing the NBA column for 12 months out of the year. NCAA-W and NCAA-M turn into NCAA FB, NCAA FS, FCS, whatever the case is. And so my interest here is, has MLB actually trended to being the 6th or 7th most interesting sport? Now, hear me out. Okay, hear me out here. All right, because you have football. Well, okay, we could easily put football at the number 1 category of popular sports right now for people. Right? We could talk about football. Football is talked about 365 days out of the year. I would equate football in America now to football in foreign countries, primarily European countries, okay? Where that's their primary sport. That's it. We have football. We talk about football, and everything centered around what we're doing is football related. For those that might be a little confused, I'm talking about soccer. I hope you would know that, but we have to teach and learn for everybody that listens to the Rome Show. So now, if I was to rate the level with which sports are watched or liked, or people want to see them on their television, I would go NFL. Then I would go NCAA college football. Yes, that is correct. NCAA college football. All right. Then I would go a 3-way tie at 3rd place of all the basketballs: NBA, NCAA men, NCAA women. Because I do believe for a long period of time, the NBA probably dominated the basketball viewership. But then I think for a lot of years, a lot of people would make the common adage, oh, well, I like watching college basketball better because they play defense. Or I like watching college basketball better because there's more on the line. Or I like watching college basketball better because of March Madness, or whatever the case is. But again, the conversation earlier of the one and dones and the changing of what the rules are, I think has also changed the likeness level of college basketball. But at the end of the day, I still think that comment reigns true. The type of play happening in college basketball, the way college basketballers come out every single day trying to win games, and the fun that you see for the most part of them playing the game, especially when you get to March makes sense why people would go and gravitate towards watching that sport. NCAA women's college basketball has really taken an uptick the last 10 years. I mean, it's obvious and it's true. And it's kind of crazy to think you had one of the greatest coaches in Pat Summitt kind of help lead that charge. Then you have the lady from Stanford, Tara Vanderveer, and then you have Gino Auriemma and UConn, who have both been there for 20-plus years, on top of the Pat Summitt and some others, Kim Mulkey, that have come along in NCAA women's basketball. You've really started to see that rise. And then while that rose, the WNBA started to rise. Pay wages for women in professional basketball. The inability to have to go across seas, go overseas to play professional women's basketball. On top of that, the need to go overseas while right after the WNBA season. Like, I don't know if people realize this, for most of the existence or the history of the WNBA, if you wanted to be a full-time professional female basketball player, you had to play in the WNBA. And then to make ends meet, just as a basketball player, like NBA guys or MLB guys in baseball or NHL guys in hockey, to just play your sport and make the money, the women had to then go overseas and then play internationally as well. And there was a lot. I remember when I first graduated college and I was trying to get into sports media and all this other stuff, there was a lot of talk about how women make more money playing basketball overseas than they do in America, which is absolutely ridiculous. But that was the case. And now, because of trailblazers in the college game and television and the coverage and dominant women in sports that are now putting it on the forefront, you have NCAA women's basketball up there as something that people are watching. And I would argue that during the months of January to probably the end of March Madness, women's basketball at the NCAA level is probably a top 5 sport in terms of average viewership, right? We're not talking about committed, consistent viewership, okay? We're talking about the average fan that probably is a football fan. But then after that, what are they watching? And they're probably flipping through, most likely missing the NBA for NCAA men. And because of that, they're probably going to the women. And then there are some baller-ass women's basketball players out there. We've talked about Caitlin Clark on this show. Angel Reese is awesome. We talked about Brittany Griner. And then we could go across the course of history, both recent and past, and see that. So it's an interesting place for MLB to be. And then on top of that, soccer is continuing to gain popularity in this country, right? And I think what people also forget in this country sometimes is soccer in Europe, in Africa, in countries overseas, outside of the United States. Soccer is our American football. It is the most important thing. It is talked about the most any day of the year, and twice on Sunday. You can get information about what's going on with transfers, who's winning Copa America, right? What's happening with the World Cup, what issues is FIFA facing because they're all a bunch of fraudulent idiots that run that organization, right? Well, now, and I think it's because of safety in a lot of the other sports in America, you're starting to see an uptick in soccer, okay? Well, in 15 or 20 years, that only continues to pan out. Because now those same 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds that chose to kick the ball instead of hit the ball or get hit while carrying the ball are now going to start watching soccer more as they get older. And we are now living in that melting pot of sports right now where you can no longer, I believe, and I could be wrong here, the Rome Show 1 on Instagram and Twitter, if you have an opinion on this, I'd love to hear from you. But I think we are trending to a location where the 4 major sports are no longer the 4 major sports. And the way you used to think about the 4 major sports can no longer be considered. I think back in the day, it would be baseball, then basketball or football, and then hockey, okay? And then soccer. And then we started to creep more into the 90s and the 2000s, and you started to get to more football, then baseball, then basketball, then hockey, then soccer. Well, now I'm serious about this assessment. I think I would love to hear from more people, but just based on the coverage, based on the way people talk about it, based on the interest, based on the fanship, X, Y, and Z, okay, I would rate it as football, NCAA men's basketball, NBA, NCAA women's basketball, soccer, Major League Baseball. I feel that way. I really do. And look no further than the Oakland Athletics. Look no further than what's going on with the Oakland Athletics. We will talk about that and a little bit more going on in the game of baseball after we get back from this commercial break here on the Rome Show in the morning on 12 OZ Sports. Stay with us.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Yeah.
That is right. It's the Rome Show in the AM on 12ozsports.com. Broadcast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I am Andrew Romanella. I am your host of the Rome Show in the morning, most likely your new favorite radio show of all time. I got a write-in from our fearless leader, Beck, and he made a great point. And then we got a few texts back and forth, nothing crazy, you know, it's not like we have thousands of hours of time in these commercial breaks. No, we have a second to get our mind reset and then come back for the people. And Beck shot me a text and he said, I think the NHL is beating MLS when it comes to popularity. And, you know, as I was sitting in that commercial break and I was looking at the rundown that I had written down about what I thought each sport was, I realized in that conversation with him that there's a general idea, right? Like maybe hockey's 4 and soccer's 5 or vice versa. But when you really break it down, it's probably more regionalized than anything else, right? Like if I'm in a region where ice hockey is way more prominent than in a region where it's not, right? I would think that soccer would probably dominate that region a little bit more than ice hockey. So, for example, if I live in the state of Michigan, well, you know what? I'm probably going to go with hockey ahead of soccer. But if I live in the state of California, and then these are just random examples, but kind of generally make plenty of sense. If I live in Florida or California or Texas, there's a solid chance that soccer's above ice hockey. And that fluctuates. But I think what's wild, though, is when we were growing up, I don't even know if there was really a conversation. You know, I'm 33 years old. I could tell you that the 4 major sports for the entirety of my life were football, baseball, basketball, hockey. That cannot be considered. That is not the case anymore, right? First off, in America, you have to consider soccer as a major sport because it is. But because there was no primary professional sports league really associated with soccer until the MLS really took flight 30 years ago, that it didn't feel like a major sport. But yet the rest of the country's living in this world where soccer is the number one sport. So the fact that Beck and I can have this conversation right now about whether or not soccer or hockey has higher popularity is awesome for both sports, because hockey was also the forgotten four major sport for the longest time. Like, it blows my mind that hockey is not as popular as it is, because, I mean, like, it's just my opinion here, okay? But if I was to sit down and watch a hockey game, and then I was to sit down and watch a football game, I'm sorry, there's chaos everywhere. Okay? Chaos everywhere. There is a bunch of dudes on this side with a small, what looks like rubber cylinderish thing. They're trying to run through a wall of all those people who are trying to absolutely take their heads off. Okay? Crazy stuff happens. The ball bounces nutty. People do dumb things. And sometimes you could turn on a football game in the middle of a play, and it just likes a bunch of people running around, chicken with their heads cut off, and a ball flying through the air. Well, hockey's kind of like the same thing. And it always blew my mind that people would love football and not like hockey, when in actuality, hockey is the best combination of all of them. It's continuous paced, but there is stop in the action. There is a lot of offensive and defensive strategy. There's big hits. There's fights. You can fight each other. There are great saves. There are awesome offensive plays. We love points, right? But because, and I have to credit my brother on this one, but because half the country has no idea what it even feels like to be on ice or touch a stick or be in the realm of hockey, the popularity never grew as much, right? Because think about it. I can go outside right now, grab grass and a football, and play 5-on-5 two-hand touch. Even if I don't really watch football that much, I have an idea and I can go do that. Because I can buy a football from Target or Walmart or Dick's, and I can go play with my friends. I can't just grab an ice hockey stick and go shoot, right? First off, you need a net. Secondly, you sometimes need some space. Third, you need to know what the hell an ice hockey stick is. Fourth, if you want to do it on ice, you need to know how to skate. And skating without the stick and the pads and the people trying to hit you is hard enough. So you could almost eliminate half the population, let's call it, because of that. But I think what the NHL has done better than every other league is they've promoted their players. They've put interest into the game in other ways. Give me up close and personal. 24/7 was the NHL's version of Hard Knocks, okay? And I would argue 24/7 is 66 times better than Hard Knocks, because there's no fluff on the hockey side. There's no, let's film this random guy that probably won't even make the team at the end of training camp because it's a heartfelt story that'll get people to want to watch. No, with the NHL, it's black and it's white. They don't care about the fluff. They don't care about what people think. If it's preseason game 1, they're playing like it's the Stanley Cup. If it's game 87, they're playing like it's the Stanley Cup. If it's the Stanley Cup, they're playing like it's the Stanley Cup. And that's the difference in that sport. And then on top of that, their fan engagement is elite level. How many videos you see on a daily basis of a hockey player in warmups picking up a puck and throwing it over the bleachers, or a fan holding up a sign against the glass and the hockey player adhering to what the sign says? It's just one of those sports. And now it's finally getting its due, because social media and communications outlets have now allowed us to see more inside that sport, and they do a great job. They do a great job. I think hockey has the best insight into their players out of any major sport. I think it's hockey, then it's basketball, then it's football, then it's baseball. All right, I can't really speak on the other ones because I'm not fully entrenched in their social media. And when it comes to the college game, that's all on the school, right? There's ACC network, SEC network, Big Ten network, all of those things. But each individual school, then let alone let's fine-tune it a little bit more. Each individual program probably has their own social media director. So I can only really speak on the four major sports there. And I'm more soccer coming my way, but it's usually not in America. So that's where the MLS needs to keep stepping their game up. But either way, that was a great point out of Beck. And I think that's why hockey's on such a rise in non-hockey dominant regions of the world, because they do such a good job with fan engagement on and off the ice, on social media, in live games, while you're in the stadium. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go around the wide world. So In the National Football League, Ben Johnson pulled his name from the Commanders' job. Yeah, that's right. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, was planning on, or if not rumored to be, the new head coach of the Washington Commanders. Now, the Washington Commanders brass was on their way to meet Ben Johnson after the Lions were eliminated from the postseason and was called by Johnson's, I guess, entourage, agent, team, himself. I have no clue. Someone from Johnson's camp, I should say, called the Lions and said he'd no longer be interested. Detroit gave him a little bit more money. He stays as the offensive coordinator. Okay. So for me, it's not necessarily about the Ben Johnson thing because I don't know what he's going to be as a head coach. Also, I don't have enough confidence in offensive coordinators that have never been head coaches turning into head coaches. So for me, if I was a Commanders fan, I don't even know if I was going to be that excited as to what was going on in the first place. But it's just very interesting to me because it's a league with 32 teams. It's a league that it's very hard to get head coaching jobs. It's a league where it's hard to hold on to head coaching jobs. And a guy that is coaching in a city that just did something it has not done in 33 years. Their head coach after the game said, "We may never get back here again." That's how hard it is to get back here. Has decided that after getting offered a head coaching job, which is almost a 2% chance in the National Football League, he's probably smaller than that. He says no. Why? Because last time I checked, the Washington Commanders have the number 2 overall pick in the league. They have the most cap space available, or top 2 out of any team in the National Football League. They have a brand new GM. Just switched ownership from Dan Snyder to a human being that actually has a heart and knows how to exist in this world like a person, make a great workplace, and make a great environment. And so, what would be the reason to take your name out of that hat? Is there something we're missing? Is Detroit really that good? Like, you love Detroit that much? Is it that you're going off of past history with Washington and not current history? I have no idea, okay? But that Commanders situation used to look like the worst situation in the league, and now it doesn't. But now they also have to figure out what they're going to do with their head coaching situation because, you know, if you like Adam Peters and you think he's the GM of the future, that's super important, right? Because he's the guy picking the players. But at the end of the day, with the cap space and the number 2 overall pick, you cannot afford to get this wrong again, right? This is a scenario that we've seen the Washington Football Club have a few times in the last 15 years. Top 10 pick, looking for a quarterback, new general manager, need to do something. Well, you finally got rid of the root of the issue, and that's Dan Snyder. So we'll see what happens in Washington, but I found it super interesting that Ben Johnson removed his name. And, you know, kudos to Dan Campbell. Must be running a great program in Detroit that somebody wants to not take the head coaching opportunity and stay as the OC there. But it really leads me to believe, is Washington farther away from winning than we all think because we're getting blinded by the money and the number 2 overall pick? We continue on. Tennessee, the Volunteers, they are under investigation again. Again, you say, Andrew? Yeah, that's right. Again. I don't know if you know this, but Tennessee got handed down a pretty hefty penalty from the NCAA because of infractions that happened with their former football coach from 2018 to 2020. I'll start there, okay? I think it was in 2022 maybe they officially got it handed down to them, but essentially Tennessee is currently on a 5-year probation, okay? They lost 28 scholarships in their football program over that 5-year period. They were cited for over 200 violations, level 1 and level 2 violations, which at the NCAA level in layman's terms means the worst type of violation. They were fined nearly $9 million. They had a bowl ban on them. I think it was this year and next year. Something along those lines, okay? So that's what's going on currently at Tennessee for what happened over their former head football coach a few years back, okay? That guy was fired. And when he was fired, by the way, Philip Fulmer, who was the Hall of Fame and former head coach of the football team for Tennessee, was the AD at the time. He also stepped down. So there was a lot going on. All right, there was apparently a pay player scheme, essentially what you have always heard. Well, now Tennessee's under investigation for the NIL. For those that don't know what the NIL is, that's name, image, and likeness. Okay, so here's the stupidity of that rule, and I think you're going to laugh when I say it to you, but it's the truth. A player can go out and get an NIL on their own. So somebody can come to me and say, Romo, I want to be sponsored by the Rome Show podcast. And I say, awesome, let's do it. And we come up with a contract, and bam, sponsored by the Rome Show podcast. Okay? Now, if player with coach, now with college coach, any of them, comes to Romo and that college coach is, let's say my boy comes to me with this player and is like, yo, Romo, you got to sign this kid to an NIL. He's legit. Let's get him on a deal. Okay. I call the kid. I sign him to the NIL deal. He's a part of Wide World Shop. Now, to you, the listener, what sounds wrong with that? Either side of that conversation. The kid going out and finding it himself, or my boy bringing him to me and then me signing the kid. It's the same freaking thing. The kid got the NIL, which is the purpose of the rule. Name, image, likeness. They can make money off of their name, image, likeness. However, because Romo's boy helped him get the NIL in this scenario, as in the other scenario, the kid straight up found it himself, now we got issues, right? That's a flawed rule. That is a stupid rule. So you're telling me we can toe the line, right? Because if I'm a coach and I'm with a player and I'm like, it would be a good idea, man. Somebody should reach out to that Wide World Shop guy, right? Man, those are some good hoodies. Be electric. This mug, what a great way to start your day. Be electric, right? And then what if one of the players is like, oh, that's a great idea, then sends me an email, okay? You're telling me, is that illegal? I mean, technically he helped him get here, right? And also, is that wrong? I'm sorry. So we're supposed to be helping the kids in every other aspect, right? Helping them mature, helping them in academics, helping them on the field, making sure they're a good family member, making sure they're a good community member. All of those things I can incite any wisdom on. I can help them out. If they need a job, right? Let's say they need a job and I want to point them in the direction of places I think they could work and they go work there, they're good. But God forbid, I suggest or help them take advantage of their name, image, and likeness, and they don't just do it 100% on their own. So that's what's happening with with Tennessee right now. Essentially, there's a group called Spear, I think their name is, or Spire, wild name. Spear Sports Group. And they are who kind of runs the Tennessee Booster Club. Okay, nothing wrong with the Booster Club. Only issues with a booster club if they are in cahoots with the college and who they want to sign on their NIL. So the president of the school came out and said this: the NCAA enforcement staff's intended processing of the proposed allegations is replete with legal and procedural defects, including unsettled and outstanding interpretive questions that require further attention and input from the NCAA membership, particularly given the novel nature of the issue and the gravity of such determinations, Plowman, president of the school, wrote in the letter, or chancellor, one of the two. Further, some of the allegations are simply factually untrue. Okay, Plowman continues on with this. It is intellectually dishonest for the NCAA staff to issue guidelines that say a third-party collective / business may meet with prospective student athletes, discuss NIL, even enter into a contract with prospective student athletes, but at the same time say that the collective, who is the school or the business, may not engage in conversation that would be of recruiting nature. So for Tennessee's specific problem, they're saying the NCAA is that Tennessee is using the NIL for recruiting. What? Wait, hold on a second here. You're telling me that NIL is helping recruit players? So what's our problem? Like, seriously, what is our problem? So the chancellor's point is this. The player can go meet with the business, right? The player can go talk to the business, enter a contract. The business can pay the player $2.5 million. The business can also run The booster club for Tennessee. But, whoa. Stop the press. He told the kid to go play softball at Tennessee. No, it's illegal now. What? I mean, seriously, what are we talking about here? The transfer portal is an obvious thing. It's all over the place. We know when this kid shifts from Alabama to Florida, okay? Baseball, prime example. Look at the LSU roster. It's a fact, man. Tommy Tanks, right? NC State, freshman of the year, hitting homers. There's literally no need for him to leave NC State. He'd get drafted. He'd still be in pro baseball, still be one of the best hitters in the game. What? But LSU comes a knocking. They have a Marucci deal. They have an NIL. And bam. Now all of a sudden, a kid that did not need to transfer, probably did not, had a great year, played every single game. Really, unless he actually didn't like his coach who recruited and played him out all the time. Anyways, he went to LSU along with other guys. You're telling me the NIL didn't have a factor in that? You're telling me when guys choose to go to Alabama, the NIL doesn't have a factor in that? That's dumb. And Plowman's right. It's stupid. So you're telling me they could sit at a table and come to a $3.5 million agreement, but that booster guy or whatever can't just say, hey, and by the way, man, I love Romo. I mean, he's a great head coach, man. So if you're going to sign this NIL, like, you really got to think about coming to Tennessee or vice versa. We can't on a recruiting visit use that? Why not? Well, why not? Because isn't that like that's like literally the idea here. And NCAA, you're stupid if you didn't think that this would happen. Did you really think that a coach was just going to sit here like this? I can't do the NIL, everybody. I can't help you. You cannot make money with my help. No. It's the opposite, man. It's just like a stupid thought. So the thought from Plowman finished with this. Any discussion about NIL might factor into a prospective student-athlete's decision to attend an institution. This creates an inherently unworkable situation, and everybody knows it. That's the best quote I've seen since NIL has been created. The NCAA needs to get some things right, and it's not just in this category, but it starts with the transfer portal and NIL, okay? Because we had issues of other nature up until 5 years ago, and we all knew issues would come from opening up the transfer portal and making NIL a thing. But I don't think we realized how stupid, maybe we did, the NCAA would be in their handling of these issues as they come up. And that, to me, is the biggest thing. NCAA, figure it out. What do you want out of the NIL? What do you want out of the transfer portal? Do you want it to be so that players can take advantage of their name, image, and likeness? Or did you just do it so that you could get people off your back about the conversation of players earning something, since schools are making millions upon millions, conferences are making millions upon millions, and these players were getting nothing? But then when you made the rule, you're like, well, we have to control it somehow because we're still the NCAA. And so we don't want this to be professional sports. So let's come up with this dumb rule where we tell you that you can't use the NIL in recruiting. Well, that literally is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So if I see Bryce Young on a Toyota commercial while he was in college, okay, and I'm his head coach, can I not talk about that commercial? If someone says on a recruiting visit, yo, I saw Bryce Young on the Toyota commercial, that's sick. How cool is it that he has that NIL? Am I supposed to pretend like he didn't say that? Oh, we can't talk about that? Well, that's dumb. So there's a lot of flaws with this rule. And and Tennessee, who is on a 5-year probation, if they really thought they did something wrong here, or they thought that this was a serious issue, because if you're a second-time level 1 or level 2 offender on probation, it's not good. It's not good. All right, well, their chancellor came out adamantly, their AD came out adamantly that these are wrong, this is wrong. And on top of that, it's a great opportunity to put the NCAA on blast because, again, for another situation, the NCAA is absolutely poorly handling everything. All right? Daily data is this to finish off your day. Did you know, and we're going to talk about this in length tomorrow because we have a lot of baseball. It's funny, right? I started the show with Inway baseball, but thinking about the Athletics and thinking about the Orioles getting a new owner, all of that stuff was what I wanted to talk about today. But then when I went on to do my research and I went on to start looking at all the Twitter, what's trending in baseball, I'm like, man, so many other things are trending. So many other things are visible to you outside of baseball, which is just so you have some inside the curtain look as to where the show comes from. But tomorrow I want to get into the specific topics. The Orioles sold their team to two private equity billionaires for $1.75 billion. Huge for the Baltimore Orioles. The Oakland Athletics are in a battle. Where's their new home going to be? Okay. And we mentioned Utah wanting a hockey team. Well, rumblings might be that Utah also wants a baseball team as well. So we'll dive into that. But I thought your daily data could get you excited for Thursday's show. Did you know that the Oakland Athletics have been in the bottom 10 of payroll in Major League Baseball for the last 15 years? Okay. I don't think that that is the craziest daily data you've ever gotten, but check this, okay? Did you know that the highest opening day payroll for the Oakland Athletics happened in 2019, and that payroll was a whopping $92.2 million. That is right. The highest payroll in the last 15 years on opening day for the Oakland Athletics has been $92.2 million. That is the reason why they are struggling in Oakland. Their stadium is really, really bad, and they want to move to Vegas. But there's some serious issues with that, and you'll have to tune into the Rome Show tomorrow, February 1st, to hear what, why, how, and why I think the Orioles could be, in the next 20 years, the best team in the AL East. I am Andrew Romanello. This has been the Rome Show in the AM on 12 OZ Sports, broadcast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you missed this part of the show, any part of the show, you want to re-listen to the show, get us on Instagram and Twitter at 12 OZ Sports, at The Rome Show 1, and at Coach_Romo24. We will be back tomorrow with all that baseball talk and more. Until then, peace. Oh, yeah, check out the podcast, too, wideworldshop.com.
Thank you for listening.